Welcome to Coach Eichner's Math. Today we are talking about more parallel lines and the algebra that goes with it. So, real quick, let's talk about our parallel lines and our conjecture we have. We have a pair of parallel lines. We have a transversal cutting through the middle of it. Because they are parallel lines, I know that 1 and 7 are going to be vertical pairs. Vertical pairs are always congruent. I know that angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical pairs as well. Angle 1 and angle 3 are corresponding pairs, which are also congruent. Angle 3 and angle 5 are also vertical pairs, which are congruent. So right now I know that angle 1, angle 7, angle 3, and angle 5 are congruent angles. So our advantage here, notice our little zigzag, is I can say that 8, 2, 6, and 4 are also congruent. So if they are in red or blue, they are going to be congruent. If I'm talking about two red angles, it's congruent. If I'm talking about two blue angles, it is congruent. If I have a blue angle and I have a red angle, then I'm going to say that they are supplements. Okay, if they are supplement, that means they add up to 180 degrees. So that was a real quick review for you. Now let's get into the problem at hand. They tell me right now that measure of angle 1 is 7x minus 3. And they tell me right now that the measure of angle 5 is 8x minus 19. Well, angle 1 and angle 5 are both blue angles. Okay, they are alternate exterior angles. They are congruent. So because they are congruent, if I have congruent angles, I can say that congruent angles are equal. Congruent angles are equal, so I can say 7x minus 3 equals 8x minus 19. Looking at it carefully, I'm going to say minus 7x on both sides. I'm going to say plus 19 on both sides, and I would say that 16 equals x. Now, that is not the end of our problem. 16 equals x. Now I've got to find the measure of angle 4. So let's go plug 16 back in and say 8 times 16 minus 19. That's 80. 122 minus 19, or 103. So I know that angle 5 is 103 degrees, which means 103 degrees and angle 4. Now I've got a blue and a red, and a blue and a red are supplements. So I could say 180 minus 103 is going to give me the measure of angle 4, which in this case is 77 degrees. So, just a little algebra for you. Okay, as I'm going through, I'm going to look at our next example. Again, every time I have one of these problems, I'm going to make sure that I am finding which ones are congruent before I ever start my problem. So again, 1 and 4 are vertical angles. 1 and 5 correspond, so they are congruent. 5 and 8 are vertical angles. So now I know 1, 4, 5, and 8 go together. And right now I know 2, 3, 6, and 7 go together. This is my easy way to help myself knowing the difference. If I've got two blue angles, they're congruent. I've got two red angles, they're congruent. If I have one of each, they must be supplementary. That is the only two possible choices when I have parallel lines and a transversal. So let's look down below. Angle 4 is 20x plus 3. Angle 6 is 9x plus 3. So these two angles right here, we know that a blue and a red means that they are supplements. Supplements always equal 180. Well, if they equal 180, that means I need to take both pieces they tell me and add them together and say 20x plus 3 plus 9x plus 3 equals 180. Or 29x plus 6 equals 180. 29x equals 1 174. So just do a quick moment of math here. If I know that 174, I'm going to take and divide by 9. So as I am dividing by 9, 174 divided by 9, excuse me, not 9, by 29, I'm going to find that x is 6. So now that I know x is 6, what else does it ask? It asks for the measure of angle 3. Because it asks for a measure of angle 3, I'm going to talk about angle 4. So 20 times 6, which is x, plus 3 would be 120, which is 123 degrees for angle 4. So I'm going to say equals 123 degrees. Well, if angle 4 is 123 degrees, angle 3 and angle 4 make a linear pair, which add up to 180. So 180 minus 123 is going to give me 57 degrees, which is the measure of angle 3. So as we're going through this, if they are supplements, we add them and equal to 180. If they are congruent, they are equal to each other. So at this time, I'm going to give you a little hint to extend your line. So go ahead and extend this line out in both directions to make it look like all the other pictures you've seen. This time, take just a moment and see if you can complete the next problem on your own. So, hopefully you pause the video, work this out. I'm still going to start by marking my 4 congruent angles. First thing I'm going to do every time. If they're in blue, they go together. I'm going to go ahead and grab my red marker and say if they are red, they belong together. If it's one of each, they must be supplementary. Those are the only options I have, congruent or supplementary. So, angle 1 is 8x plus 3. Angle 2 is 20y minus 3. And angle 3 is 11x minus 12. Now, what I notice is I have 2 values with x and 1 value with y. So the first thing I've got to do is get rid of my x's. It makes it easy because I have 2 of them. If I have 2 variables in a problem, it makes my life a little difficult. So whenever possible, I'm going to stick with 1 variable. Angle 1 and angle 3 are both red angles, which means that they are congruent angles. Congruent angles are equal. So 8x plus 3 equals 11x minus 12. Going to go ahead and subtract 8x from both sides. Going to go ahead and add 12 to both sides. And I would say that 15 equals 3x, or x equals 5. So now that I know x, go plug it in. 55 minus 12 would give me 43 degrees. Well, that means that angle 1 is also 43 degrees. Well, I know 43 degrees for my red angles. They tell me a blue angle is 20y minus 3. So a red and a blue angle, they're not congruent, so they must be supplement. Because they're supplement, they equal 180. So angle 1 is 43 degrees plus angle 2, which is 20y minus 3, equals 180 degrees. So to make my life simpler, I'm going to say 20y plus 40 equals 180, or 20y equals 140. Easy way to say that, we're going to divide by 20. Y would equal 7. I need to go back and fill in my x equals 5. Again, all this is algebra set up in a different form. Use a picture to set up an equation. They're congruent, they're equal, they're supplement, they're adding up to 180 every time. Looking down at example 4. Okay, example 4 says the measure of angle 1 is 6y plus 5. The measure of angle 2 is 5x minus 16. Measure of angle 3 is 95 degrees. And the measure of angle 4 is 3x. Again, I've got 2 x's and 1 y. So the first problem I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for x. Now, in order to solve for x, I need to figure out which lines trap my x values. So right now, as I look at my problem, x is trapped by my transversal and by my 2 vertical lines. Notice that x is between the transversal and the vertical line, between the transversal and the vertical line. So that's what I'm going to use. To help myself out, I'm going to come through and I'm going to say that the blue angles are congruent. Well, right now I know that as I'm looking through, okay, if you want to turn your paper to help you see it, you can turn your paper. I've got vertical angles, I've got corresponding angles, and I've got vertical angles, which tells me that my 2 angles are going to be congruent. As I'm solving for x, I have congruent angles. Congruent angles are equal. So 3x equals 5x minus 16, or 16 equals 2x. 8 equals x. So 8 equals x. Now that I've got that done, believe it or not, I do have enough information. I'm going to go ahead and switch colors for you. And I'm going to grab purple here. And I'm going to say on the purple, when I turn my paper, I'm going to extend my lines here, still using the transversal. But now, in order to trap the angles with y, I have to use my other lines. So you can see it either way. Trap between the transversal and my 2 horizontals here. So what I know about those 2 angles, after I mark my congruent angles, okay, now I'm using the purple, so if I pick this angle here, 95, and then my corresponding angle would be here and outside, okay? Notice 95 and 6y plus 5 are going to be congruent. So since they're congruent, now I'm solving for y. I've got congruent pieces. Congruent pieces are equal. Since congruent pieces are equal, I can say that 6y plus 5 equals 95, or 6y equals 90. Y would have to be 15. Okay, so the only advantage they get in doing this to us is to try to make our life difficult, extend your lines out, look at where your angle's at. Trap it between the transversal and a pair of parallel lines. That's what you can talk about being congruent. These are considered alternate interior angles, both sets, and alternate interior angles are always congruent. So know that that is something to be looking for on the test as you get going forward. And that today takes care of our notes. I appreciate you watching and have a great rest of your day.